This is appalling news. I'm Paul Chatto. BBC headline announces Australian court rules in landmark case that asked, "What is a woman?" The article is written by Sophia Batiza, gender and identity correspondent, BBC World Service. We are worried about the impartiality of Ms. Batiza. Being a gender and identity correspondent is not quite the same as being identified as a historically neutral war correspondent or City Hall reporter or satire columnist, although gender and identity correspondent comes pretty close to the latter. A transgender male from Australia has won a discrimination case against a women-only social media app called Giggle for girls after they were denied access on the basis of being identified as male. We are thankful to the BBC for pointing out in this cutline accompanying the picture that Roxanne Tickle, the complainant, was in the center of the photograph. We would never have known otherwise. The federal court found that although Roxanne Tickle had not been directly discriminated against, she was a victim of indirect discrimination, which refers to pointing and sniggering, and ordered the app to pay her 10,000 Aussie dollars. Tickle originally wanted $200,000. In 2021, Tickle downloaded Giggle for Girls, an app developed by Sal Grover and marketed as an online refuge where women could share their experiences in a safe space and where men were not allowed. As someone who identifies as a woman, Tickle claimed she was legally entitled to use services meant for women and that she was discriminated against based on her gender identity, claiming that persistent misgendering by Grover had prompted constant anxiety and occasional suicidal thoughts between consuming large quantities of ice cream while listening to Janice Ian. Giggle's legal team argued throughout the case that sex is a biological concept, but Justice Robert Bromwich said in his decision on Friday that case law has consistently found sex is changeable and not necessarily binary. Dismissing Giggle's argument, we have no idea if Australian case law is moronic or the interpretation of Justice Bromwich was staggeringly moronic, or if he was having a stroke at that very moment. But here is a very simple test to see if Roxanne Tickle is in fact a man. No woman would sue a woman's-only app. We think that's a subtle clue that Bromwich missed while in the middle of his alleged stroke. Another clue as to Roxanne Tickle's gender autism is the predilection of trans males to use stripper names. One other item we'd like to point out is this line in the article. Tickle was born male but changed her gender and has been living as a woman since 2017. Wouldn't it be more correct to write, but changed his gender? Even if it was possible, one would have to change gender from a gender, because Tickle claimed to have made the switcheroo. It would connote changing back to a him. Oh, it's all so confusing. We'd like to add that a switcheroo is not an Australian marsupial. But all we can say is, thank God for misogynist rulings like the one from Justice Bromwich, because, as we always say, men make the best women. This item was brought to our attention recently, but it dates back to 2015. We present it as news because it sounds like something that would happen today. The headline read, "World's first lesbian bishop calls for church to remove crosses to install Muslim prayer space." We assumed this was the premise of a Monty Python sketch, but unfortunately, it wasn't. The article said, The Bishop of Stockholm has proposed a church in her diocese removing all signs of the cross and putting down markings showing the direction to Mecca for the benefit of Muslim worshippers. What a great idea, especially considering it is a well-known fact that Muslims are totally bereft of their own places of worship. It went on, Eva Brunn, who was made the world's first openly lesbian bishop by the Church of Sweden in 2009 and has a young son with her wife and fellow lesbian priest Gunilla Linden, made the suggestion to make those of other faiths more welcome. We say, bravo! We couldn't think of a better way to stem the tide of declining Christian church attendance. Only a lesbian bishop with a turkey baster child could come up with such a brilliant idea. Of course, this is Sweden, which was voted best freeloader country by Illegal Immigrant magazine. The bishop insisted this wasn't an issue. After all, airports and hospitals already had multi-faith prayer rooms, and converting the dockyard church would only bring it up to speed. We here at Appalling News are not ecclesiastically trained, but we are certain a church is not the same as an airport. We look forward to the mosques that have overrun the city of Malmö now eagerly adding multi-faith prayer rooms. Father Patrick Pettersson, one of the priests in her diocese and active in the same parish as the Siemens Mission Church, hit back, complaining, "There is no way you could equate a consecrated church with a prayer room," remarking, "I should have thought a bishop would be able to tell the difference." The upshot was that Bishop Brunn's suggestion was turned down, and she is now a Church of Sweden senior bishop because it's great ideas that move you up the ranks. And finally, it has now been confirmed that Boeing Starliner astronauts will return home on a SpaceX Dragon in 2025. Starliner capsule will return to Earth empty sometime in September. Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore, who launched to the ISS aboard Boeing's staggeringly over-budget and mismanaged Starliner on June 5, will return home no earlier than February of 2025. The Dragon capsule will launch with 2 crew members in order to create space for Williams and Wilmore's return. It will not have the Coleman cooler, the bicycle rack, or bouncy castle they usually take on their trips. The worries started when the Starliner capsule experienced malfunctions in 5 of its 28 reaction control thrusters. Boeing responded, "Hey, there are 23 working thrusters left." But that was not good enough according to NASA, who opted to embarrass Boeing with the SpaceX Dragon decision. We will withhold further sarcasm until the 2 astronauts are safely back on Earth. This is Appalling News, and that's the way it is.